I spent my whole life swearing I wouldn't be like my dad. I built that vow into everything, into the way I hugged my kid too long, into the way I said love you like it was a seatbelt, into the way I tried to keep our house bright and loud. Then one random Tuesday night, standing barefoot on our kitchen tile with a worksheet under my hand, I heard a voice cut through the room, and my stomach dropped because it wasn't his voice. It was mine. Hey. One word, not even loud. My son's shoulders jumped, and he took a step back, quick and automatic, like his body knew the move before his brain did. From the doorway, my wife didn't say anything. She was holding her phone at chest level, not pointed like a weapon, just present, like a witness who didn't want to blink. And the worst part? For the next few days, I acted like this was just a rough night, like we could all pretend the sound hadn't happened. The refrigerator hummed. The pause stretched. My kid still looked at me like I was a storm he couldn't predict. The first thing I learned to read as a kid wasn't a book. It was the front door. Our deadbolt had a sharp metallic click. Then the door would drift shut and the latch would settle like the house exhaling. Then the keys, heavy, jangling, would hit the ceramic bowl on the entry table. That bowl was a weather report. If the keys hit hard, you got quiet. If the keys hit soft, you stayed out of the way. If they didn't hit at all, it meant he was keeping them in his fist, and that meant you'd better be invisible. My dad wasn't a screamer. He didn't need volume. His voice stayed calm, almost polite, which somehow made it worse. He could slice you open with a sentence and then go back to eating like nothing happened. The punishment wasn't a belt or a slap. The punishment was the air. The punishment was the way silence could sit in a room for days and make you feel like you didn't deserve to take up space. I used to lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, and count the seconds between click, drift, latch, keys, footsteps. The house wasn't a home. It was a mood you had to survive. So I grew up and swore my kid would never listen to a door the way I did. My kid would hear keys and think Dad's home. Not, what version of him is coming through that doorway? For a while, I told myself I was pulling it off. I packed lunches, read bedtime stories, did dumb voices, built his bunk bed, and sanded every edge smooth. I said yes to playtime, even when I was tired, because I wanted his memories to be warm on purpose. But without noticing, I started building something else into our house too. Control. Not the obvious kind. The small kind you can justify. Shoes lined up because you don't want to trip. Backpack by the door because mornings are chaos. The way you say, "Come on," and it sounds like a suggestion, but your body means it like an order. Control feels like safety when you're the one holding it. It also looks a lot like my dad when it's coming from a 6-foot man in a doorway. I work logistics at a distribution warehouse. Pallets, scanners, driver schedules, fluorescent lights that make everybody look tired. The place runs on margins so thin you can see through them. And when something goes wrong, it always lands on somebody's back. That week, corporate was coming for an audit, and my boss, Ron, was wound tight. He kept rubbing his forehead like he was trying to erase the week with his thumb. "You're my guy," he told me. "I need clean numbers. No surprises." My phone buzzed all day with problems that weren't really problems until they were. A truck late, a scanner down, a vendor short. It was the kind of pressure that doesn't explode, just keeps tightening, quiet and constant until you forget what relaxed feels like. Monday night, My son met me at the door in dinosaur pajamas, bouncing. "Dad, 7 days." He shoved 7 fingers in my face, nails still dirty from the backyard. 7 days to my birthday, dinosaur cupcakes, and you said you'd make a big T-Rex mouth out of balloons. He said it like it was already done, like I was a man who did what he said. Over his head, my wife mouthed, "Balloons," with that tired look that means, "Please don't turn love into another project you'll resent." I ruffled my son's hair and said, 7 days. We're doing it, because I wanted that to be true with my whole chest. Tuesday at work, a shipment got misrouted. Fixing it meant overtime and rearranging half the week. Ron pulled me aside, jaw tight. If we miss numbers this quarter, he let it hang. I pictured the mortgage. I pictured the credit card payment. I pictured that birthday circle on the fridge. I said, "I'll fix it." And my voice stayed calm while my insides clenched into a fist. By the time I got home, my shirt smelled like cardboard and dust. And I kicked my shoes off too hard so they thudded against the wall. My son was at the kitchen table with homework, pencil clamped in his fist like he was wrestling it. My wife was at the sink, faucet loud, filling the room so nobody had to talk. I checked my phone. Urgent, from Ron. A bank alert. A corporate email about audit expectations. My chest tightened, and I didn't notice that my kid was watching my face the way I used to watch the front door. "I can't do this part," he said, sliding the worksheet toward me. Word problem, numbers wrong, normal. I could have sat down. I could have said, "Okay, let's do it together." Instead, I heard that old fear that everything collapses if I stop moving. "Read the question," I said. I did. "Read it again." My tone sharpened. "Dad, He started, voice small. "Hey," I said. He flinched. When he flinched at my, "Hey," I knew the cycle was already living in his body. The moment stretched, and then something inside me snapped like a dry branch. "Do you want to sit here all night?" I heard myself say, steady, cold, because that's what it looks like. His eyes went shiny. Not crying yet. That in-between place where a kid decides if crying is safe. "I'm trying," he whispered, and my throat got hot, pressure building like a piston. I could have stopped right there, but my body kept going like it was on rails. "No," I said. "You're staring at it. Trying would be doing it." My wife said my name, low, like a warning. I snapped, louder than I meant to. "What?" The pencil slipped from my son's fingers and rolled off the table, tapping the tile with a tiny sound that landed like a gunshot. His chair scraped back. He stood up fast, backing away, eyes locked on my face. Not defiant, not angry, just trying to get distance. My wife didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She lifted her phone a little, and I understood. She'd recorded it, not for revenge, for proof. "Do you hear yourself?" she asked. My son turned and hurried down the hall. His bedroom door closed with a careful click, not a slam, like he was trying not to wake up something dangerous. The silence after was thick, sitting on the counter between the crumbs and the mail. I wanted to apologize. I wanted to explain. What came out was, "He needs to listen." And it sounded like my dad in my own mouth. My wife's eyes got wet, but she didn't let the tears fall. "He's 7, she said, quiet. He was asking for help. That night I lay in bed counting sounds the way I used to. The soft creak outside my son's room, the bathroom light switch, his tiny footsteps, the careful click of his door closing again. Each sound made my stomach drop. In the morning, I tried to scrub it off with pancakes and jokes. I smiled too wide. My son answered in, "Yeah," and no, eyes on his plate. And when he said, 7 days, it didn't sound excited. It sounded like he was checking how much time we had left before I became someone else. At work, Ron pushed overtime, and I heard myself say, yeah, automatically. Like my mouth had a contract with authority, and my spine was too tired to negotiate. My wife texted me in the middle of a shift. He asked if you were mad at him. I stared at the message between stacks of shrink-wrapped product and felt sick. My kid was carrying my anger like it was his fault. That old kid logic. The only way a child can keep loving you without breaking. That night, I brought home his favorite ice cream, thinking sugar could patch a crack. He smiled for half a second, then checked my face, and the smile folded in on itself. He didn't run to me. He waited, polite like a neighbor. I handed him the bag, and he said, thanks, like we were strangers sharing an elevator. After he went to bed, my wife's phone sat on the counter, face down. I touched it, and she walked in and said, don't. It's my voice, I said. It's you, she corrected, calm. I told her to delete it. She said, no. 1 syllable. Final. I'm keeping it so you can't pretend it didn't happen. I felt my face burn because pretending is what I do when I don't know what else to do. Down the hall, my son's door clicked shut, soft as a secret. I let the phone go. It hit the counter with a small thud that sounded in my head like keys in a bowl. On Thursday, I booked an appointment with an anger counselor because the word therapist made my skin itch. I told myself it was a tune-up, like taking the truck in before the engine blows. His office smelled like coffee and hand sanitizer, fake plants, chairs that squeaked when you shifted. I sat with my hands clasped so tight my knuckles hurt and tried to talk like a reasonable man. Audit, stress, money, kid not listening. I called it an incident. He listened and then asked, when you raised your voice, where did you feel it first? I blinked, like he'd asked me what color my shame was. In my throat, I said, touching the spot like I could pinch it shut. What does it feel like? He asked. I stared at the carpet and swallowed. Pressure, I said, like I need to push something out. He nodded once. And when your son stepped back, my stomach turned cold. Same place, I said, quieter, but colder. He didn't give me a speech. He didn't tell me to forgive my dad. He gave me homework that felt like stepping off a ledge. Apologize to your son, he said. Direct. No, but. No explanation. Then make a plan with him for what happens the moment you feel that pressure. With him? I asked, like that was insane. He's the one living with it, he said. Simple as that. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and wrote, Dad, then stopped. My dad and I do the how's work dance every couple months, 2 men talking around a hole in the middle of the conversation. I wrote anyway. I wrote about the door, about the keys, about lying in bed listening. I wrote, you didn't have to hit me. You made silence into a weapon. My hand shook and the pen left dents in the paper. I left the page there like a live wire because I didn't know what to do with it yet. On Friday, my wife slid her phone toward me without a word. I hit play. My own voice filled the room. Calm, cutting, like I was proud of how controlled I sounded. The way I said my son's name like it was a warning. The way I said, hey, like it meant, don't make me. I heard my wife trying to step between us with her tone. And then I heard something I hadn't remembered at all. A tiny inhale, like my son was swallowing a sob because he wasn't sure he was allowed to make noise. My stomach flipped. I had to grip the counter to stay upright. I stopped the recording and just stood there, feeling the kitchen tilt like my body was rejecting the sound. My wife didn't touch me. She said, very softly, "He asked me if you love him." My mouth opened, and the only thing that came out was a cracked, embarrassed, "Of course." She nodded like she already knew. "He knows you love him," she said. "He doesn't know if you're safe when you're stressed." Saturday morning, Ron called. "We need another half day," he said. Corporate moved up the visit. The reflex rose. Say yes, prove yourself, earn your place. I looked down the hall at my son's closed door and the bright cartoon music leaking under it. "I can't," I said. "You can't," Ron repeated, like I'd spoken another language. "I can't," I said again. "I'll be early Monday. I'll handle my part. I'm not coming today." He exhaled hard. "We're all sacrificing." "I know," I said, keeping my voice flat with effort. "I'm still not coming." When I hung up, my heart was hammering like I'd just picked a fight with a bigger man. There was fear in it. Fear of money. Fear of consequences. But there was also something thinner underneath, like a thread of relief I didn't trust. All day, the apology sat in my mouth like a stone. Pride offered exits. He'll forget. Don't undermine authority. You're the parent. My dad's script. In the afternoon, we spread green balloons across the living room floor to practice the T-Rex mouth. The air pump wheezed. Rubber smell filled the room. My son laughed when a balloon shot across the carpet and bonked the coffee table. Then I raised my voice to call to my wife in the kitchen. "Just a normal babe?" And my son jumped. Small, but real. A hitch in his shoulders. A half step he didn't mean to take. My body went cold. "Hey, bud," I said, keeping my voice low. "Can we sit for a minute?" His smile faded. He looked wary, like sitting means trouble. We sat on the edge of the couch. Balloons rolled slowly against the baseboard. My wife hovered in the doorway, like she wanted to give us space, but couldn't leave completely. My son swung his feet, heels tapping the cushion in a nervous rhythm. I put my hands on my knees to keep them still. "Tuesday night," I said. His eyes dropped. "I yelled," I continued. "I used my big voice. I scared you. That was my fault." My throat wanted to add 100 things. Work, money, stress, the audit, the way my chest feels like a vice. But I didn't. I let the sentence end. My son blinked fast. "Are you mad at me?" he asked, so quiet it barely made sound. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. "No," I said immediately. "No. You didn't do anything wrong." He stared at his hands. "But I couldn't do it." "You couldn't do it yet," I said, "and that's normal. It's my job to help you, not to make you feel scared." He swallowed. "Are you going to yell again?" The question hung there, naked. "Are you safe?" "I'm working on not doing that," I said, and my voice shook because it wasn't a superhero promise. "So we're going to do something different." I held up my hand. "When I feel my voice getting big, I'm going to stop. I'm going to walk away for 5 minutes. I'll set a timer." I pulled out my phone and opened the timer screen so he could see it. Bright numbers. Something real. "See? 5 minutes. I'll come back when my voice is safe." My son watched the screen like it was a rule he could hold in his hand. "And," I added, "if you hear my voice getting sharp, you can say one word." He frowned. "What word?" I glanced down the hallway, at doors, at the old warning system that ran my childhood. "Door," I said. "Just say door." That's my signal to stop. He tested it under his breath. Door. My wife let out a breath, like she'd been holding it for days. You won't get in trouble for saying it, I told him. You're helping me. He looked at me for a long second, then nodded once. Small, serious. I reached out slowly and put my hand on his shoulder. He didn't flinch. He didn't lean into it like a movie. He just stayed, and that felt like something I didn't deserve and couldn't waste. After he went to bed, I stared at the unfinished letter to my dad. Mailing it felt like asking for something he might never give. I called him instead. My thumb hovered over his name like it weighed 100 pounds. He answered with a blunt, yeah, like he was doing me a favor. I yelled at my kid, I said. Silence. Kids need discipline, he offered, automatic. I scared him, I said. And when I heard my voice, it sounded like you. He exhaled, irritated. Don't put that on me. The old urge to fight rose, hot and familiar. I could feel it in my throat. I could feel my jaw tighten. I could feel my body reaching for the only language it learned in that house. I swallowed it down. I'm not calling to argue, I said. I'm calling to tell you I'm trying not to be that in my house. He didn't answer for a beat. Then softer, confused more than anything, he said, So, what do you want from me? I stared at the kitchen window, my reflection floating there, my jawline a ghost of his. Nothing, I said. I just needed you to know. He cleared his throat. All right, he said. Well, do what you gotta do. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't warmth. But it wasn't a slam either. It was a door left cracked open. Sunday morning, we baked dinosaur cupcakes. Flour on the counter, green frosting in a bowl. My son licking a spoon when he thought we weren't looking. He tried to make frosting spikes like a T-Rex back and ended up with something that looked more like a swamp monster. And he laughed so hard he snorted. Once, when he bumped a bowl too close to the edge, that pressure rose in my throat like a reflex, and my mouth started to form a sharp sound. My son's eyes flicked to my face. I stopped. I stepped back, set the timer in my pocket, and walked to the sink for 5 slow breaths, while the seconds ticked against my thigh. 5 minutes later, I came back and helped him wipe the counter, and his shoulders stayed down. Sunday night, the night before his birthday, I tucked him in. He smelled like bath soap and warm sheets. His stuffed dinosaur was under his arm like a shield. Dad? He whispered. Yeah? He hesitated, eyes on the wall. If you get mad, I can say it? My chest tightened, tender this time. Yeah, I said. You can say it. He practiced, barely audible. Door? I smiled small. That's it. I stood at his doorway, with my hand on the knob. The metal was cool. I turned it gently, guiding the latch so it made almost no sound. And I closed the door until it met the frame with the softest click I could manage. I stood in the hallway and listened, waiting for the old part of me to brace for danger after a door closes. Nothing came, just the hum of the house, my wife shifting in our room, a quiet murmur asking if I was coming to bed. The pressure in my throat was still there, an old engine that knows one speed. It probably always will be. But now, there was a timer on the counter. Now there was a word in my kid's mouth that wasn't fear. I walked away from his door without looking back, and the quiet behind me didn't feel like punishment. It felt like a choice I could keep making.